Hello everyone, and welcome. This is Game Master Karakin here. In my very first video on the Tiberium universe, in which I will discuss my thoughts and the channel's position on the continuity of the Tiberium universe, and how it relates to Red Alert. The subject of continuity is of great importance to anyone who is going to start a proper lore channel on the subject of the Tiberium universe, because, at least in conception, Red Alert, the first Red Alert game, was intended to be a prequel to the Tiberium universe, but it then continued past the Tiberium universe and off into its own direction. In this host's humble opinion, the Tiberium universe does not mix well with the Red Alert universe. Would more likely call it something of a alternate reality. For that reason, I am going to be taking this channel in the direction that the Tiberium universe and the Red Alert universe are fundamentally separated. And so, when I describe the beginnings of the Brotherhood of Nod, for instance, or the Global Defense Initiative, I will be taking them from the position that the world before 1995, when the Tiberium meteor hits, is essentially the same, with a few deviations to our own world. Not that it is from the Red Alert world going forward. Before I get into the reasons behind this decision, I am going to get into a little bit of why this topic is so important. And the reason this topic is so fundamentally important to the Tiberium universe is that there are many similarities and overlapping areas with the Red Alert series that can cause you to have some idea that they are, in fact, very much precursors of another, which the Red Alert series just happens to spring off of. Whereas, there are many inconsistencies in the background of Red Alert in comparison to what would be the effective background of the Tiberium universe without the Red Alert universe being a precursor. And what this means is that once you have an understanding, either that Red Alert is the precursor, or that Red Alert is not involved necessarily, they're rather parallel universes, you'll come to the conclusion, based on each side's origin story, let's say, the things that happened up to the development of 1995 and how things are going forward are influenced by very, very different concepts. And it changes a lot of the narrative themes and justifications by quite a margin. Does the world start out like the world of pre-1995, or rather 1994, from the first discoveries of the Brotherhood of Nod by the United Nations, start like our world, with but the existence of the Brotherhood of Nod in the background as the only real determining factor between them? All of our history, all of the First and Second World Wars, and the troubles leading up to it? Or is it based on the fact that Albert Einstein decided to go back in time, and it was this change itself that created the entry into this universe and fundamentally changed the way we look at our own history? The past 150 years, 100 years mostly, but 150 years overall,
Good job with the
really changes if you look at it from the Red Alert perspective.
This is Kane.
in that
leader of the Brotherhood of Nod.
Kane is there, yes, and he does orchestrate a lot of events going forward. However, the First and Second World Wars don't happen the way they did for us. And the status quo before 1995 is very, very different. And these differences are important factors in trying to explain to people who are new to the series about what has happened, what the background is of this series. And as a quick addendum, although I posted this in my Look into the Future video where I was playing the forest, I am not going to count the fourth Tiberium War game, or Tiberium Universe game, as a canonical part of the Tiberium Universe. For all intents and purposes, I'm considering it as if that game never came out. And the actual timeline ends with Tiberium Wars 3 and its expansion. I'm with No Strings Production on this, that shit was terrible. And does not need to exist. But that is a rant for another time. For now, let's get on to my justification part of the video. The justification portion of this video will be split into two parts. One will be themes, sort of the general overarching themes and defining characteristics will be analyzed. And the second part, which will be looking at more specific examples of the kinds of things that would change from the Red Alert universe to our own in explaining the background of the universe. And take in mind that I'm going to be using a very shortened version of events here, not the full, longer version. At some point, I would like to go through the canonical events of Red Alert and detail their own things, but that will be at some indeterminate point in the future. As a first point, I would like to address the themes that many people, and I've seen other people on different videos about the Tiberium and Red Alert universes say this before, that the series is sort of campy and silly. And to some degree, I think that that has some merit. But out of the two, the larger proportion of people that I've talked to have agreed with me that of the two universes, Red Alert, at least in its later installments, is more silly, and Tiberium is consistently gritty, with a lot more sort of real-life applications of different things. Red Alert 2, for instance, for as much as I absolutely adore the game, had flying saucers and psychic control and dolphins that shot at you with sonic waves. And that is, although the themes inside it are quite gritty, also inherently silly. Though I suppose taking the brains of randos to create Cabal is also just a bit silly. This is less important, but it is a function of the two. One characteristic that you could use to differentiate them if you're looking past the first game and its offshoots. It's not really overall defining, it's just defining enough to warrant being mentioned. The second theme that we need to discuss is the theme of Tiberium and the world-scouring, killing of billions in single strikes, kinds of overarching plot lines, I guess, that happen in the Tiberium universe that don't happen in the Red Alert universe. The Red Alert universe is sort of a World War III simulator. from different perspectives every time.
Building.
For instance, in the first one, it's what if
Unit ready.
Nazi
Building.
Germany never happened? And so they begin the world wars fighting Russia
Unit ready.
and not Germany. Cold War doesn't really happen in the same way. A lot of things change. The second one is another war against Russia, but with the twist of the intervention of Yuri
Building.
and the absence of Kane. The third one is outwardly silly and posits a world without nuclear technology
Our base is
where
under
the
attack.
Japanese Empire still exists
Unit
and
ready.
are a power that is
Building.
capable of invading the USSR and maintaining their ground against them for a fair amount of time and battling against a
Unit
combined
ready. Building.
allied
Unit lost.
bloc superpower.
Unit ready. Building.
And while
Unit lost.
the idea of global
Unit
massive
ready.
World
Building.
War III scenarios are definitely going to
Reinforcements
leave
have arrived.
millions dead,
Unit ready.
they're different from when the Global Defense Initiative shot the liquid Tiberium bomb that was buried in Sarajevo in the Temple of Nod and killed billions outright. Not intentionally, but all in one go. And the fact that during this one continuous period of history, not separate time travel interludes,
Building.
billions have died with the expansion of Tiberium.
Unit ready.
There is a difference in
Building.
tone here. I think that the Tiberium universe is a little bit closer to 40K in this light, where the tagline of every 40K book is, "We're all fucked. Humanity is
Unable
fucked.
to keep
The
up.
universe is
Building
fucked.
progress. Unit ready.
We're all going to die.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Welcome."
Acknowledged.
And I really like that. There is a
Acknowledged.
sort of morbid hope
Ready and waiting.
that, of course, comes from the villain,
Yes, sir.
but it is just that kind of universe. And it's just amazing.
Waiting orders. Moving out.
A shorter theme to mention is also the concept of time travel by itself. Time travel is fundamental to how Red Alert works, and unless you consider the Red Alert game to be the precursor, is completely separate
Moving out. Yes, sir.
from Tiberium. You don't see a Chrono Warrior in Tiberium, for instance, or any sort of use of that technology. That is just a completely different theme that they don't continue forward with. The second part of
Not building.
the
captured.
justification is a little bit of specifics. And now there are a lot of areas that you can go into of specifics here that would
Not
be
building
perfectly
captured.
Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting.
useful
Affirmative.
in this way
Yes, sir.
to differentiate them. But here is just a few that seem to me to be particularly important. The first being the fact that Command & Conquer was the first game
Mission
to
accomplished.
be created and was, of course, in the Tiberium universe, and has a lot of its basis in the pre-1995 real world. For instance, the medium tank that the GDI uses is based off of, if not directly is, a M1A1 main battle tank from the Americans, of course. Many other real-life technologies and units, such as the multiple launch rocket system and the individual troopers' weapons, coming straight from technology that was around at the time, leading to the thought, of course, that the time that precedes the beginning of the game is, of course, our real life. But it's not cut and dried, because Red Alert also, if you take it to be the precursor,
I know I promised more deep background on
would
Kane and Nod, but
necessarily
there'll be time for that
lead
later.
into these things,
Carter
right?
says you hit the ground fighting.
Well,
Nice
there's
job.
a question.
Now we need that again.
Would the M1A1 main battle tank still come
Somewhere in this
around
section is a
if time
non-base.
was reversed
It's protected
to
against
pre-World
airstrikes
War
by
I,
non-SAM
and then different
Knock them
events
out
were to
so
lead
Colonel
different
Morelli can
doctrine
provide air
going
support.
forward?
That should make it easier for you to take out
That's a
the
good
base.
question.
I'll be
I don't know.
out of the loop for a couple of days doing civvy time at the UN. Don't let me down.
It's sufficient enough that I don't think that it is a directly applicable line. I don't think it's a direct line of comparison. For instance, in Command & Conquer Red Alert, you have the world as it is without Nazi Germany.
Ready and wait.
And without Nazi Germany,
Moving
you
out.
don't get a lot of the innovations that the Nazis came up with.
Yes, sir. Moving out. Acknowledge.
But you get some of those innovations
Acknowledge.
that the Nazis would have come up with, but for an allied power
Unit reporting.
that opposes Russia. And so things do change, but there isn't the same impetus for them to change, and in the same sorts of ways.
Unit
For
New
instance,
constructor options. Building.
the tank was built into different classification systems when it originally came out.
Unable to comply.
There was several different ones, and I'm going to go over this in my first Tiberium Universe Armory video, which is going to be about the Brotherhood of Nod Scorpion tank and the different things that it presents in its own video. But tanks were built into major different specifications based on what they would be doing on the battlefield, their
Construction
battlefield
complete.
role. And this is a very important point to work off of, because the wars that they fought in
New
were very
construction
different in real life, weren't they?
Building.
The First World War was a trench war.
Acknowledge.
The Second World War was more rapidly acting. You get huge
Construction complete.
columns of tanks
New
in
construction
battles
options.
and lines
Building.
stretching over thousands of
Building.
miles. Everything was happening very
hold.
quickly. There
Cancel.
was a lot of movement in that war. Compared, of course, with World War I, where most of the stuff that happened on the Western Front happened along fairly static lines. And that's why when World War II started,
Moving out.
the French had built the Maginot Line off of the doctrine of the previous war. It was not updated for the doctrine of the new war that had yet to begin, and why tanks for the Allied forces in the beginning were those built to support trench warfare and not built to combat the blitzkrieg approach of the Nazis. The new battlefield shaped tanks into another direction in World War II and helped to set the foundations for the classification of main battle tank from light, medium, heavy, and super heavy tanks. The new main battle tank is based around the idea of
Unable to comply.
universal
Building in progress.
ease of use,
Construction complete.
repair, and the fact that you could put multiple different cannons or loadouts onto different chassis to make it ubiquitous in a world which can't support the same level of violence and economic output as the pre-World War II world.
Building.
Every subsequent war has been vastly scaled down from there, and for many very, very happy reasons. But it has been scaled down, and so far the world powers haven't really been tested in those same ways with these designs. And don't get me wrong, I am very happy about that. I don't want a world war. I don't want to live in the Tiberium universe or the Red Alert universe. I'd rather we stayed peaceful and just made games about war. But I digress. The point is, the tradition that the vehicles in Command & Conquer Tiberium Wars and the Tiberium universe are all based off of traditions that stem from our real life. And that's important, because it impacts how we would imagine them being used. In the world of Red Alert, there's a fair skip where tanks are being used like they are during and after World War II, with the tanks of Russia being essentially their tanks that they had in World War II in late periods. But that doesn't quite make a lot of sense, because they developed the tanks that they did because of the threat that they were facing and the demands of the battlefield. And so to have them be transformed, especially with how successful Soviet super heavy tanks were in the Red Alert universe, into the main battle tank formation that goes forward, it doesn't really make very much sense. At least to me. Maybe you can write in the comments to tell me how that is in fact justified. I will listen, and if I change my mind, I'll make a correction to the video. The final specific I'd like to look at is the resources of the games. And, of course, it is going to be fundamentally different, because the Red Alert universe is powered by ore, much like in our real life, except, of course, that the ore is localized and able to be transformed on the battlefield into tanks and infantry and other things without having to be supplied from the outside. A lot like Tiberium, but without it being this massive, terrifying, ecological disaster of a resource. And this point is more nitpicky than maybe it should be, but in the Red Alert universe, they're already established in sort of the collection protocols, I suppose you could say. Going to a patch of ore or Tiberium, collecting it, and returning as their economic base in the field. But in the Tiberium universe, the first people to figure out how to mine this stuff was, of course, the Brotherhood of Nod. And if you think that if there was a setup network in the Allied States that eventually become the Global Defense Initiative, then they would be able to fairly quickly, at least in some rudimentary way, begin a collections process, if not that they would be able to refine it right away. But they don't. It takes them a while. And that's a fairly important point, at least in my head. As I said earlier, there are more justifications. These are just some of the ones that I thought I could provide offhand that were compelling. And these are going to be the ways that I am going to be conducting myself on this channel. The perspective that I'll be conducting myself from. That's all for the video. Thank you very much for listening. I'm Game Master Karakin with Armed with Speculation. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Hey everybody, thank you for watching my video. I'm sorry it's sparse on the visuals. I'm learning how to do a lot of this video editing stuff as I go along. I tried to have a little bit of an edgy voice there, try to get a bit of an arch Warhammer persona going on here. Can't quite do what he does, he is just phenomenal. But I thought I'd try. I just wanted to give a nice little shout out to one of my favorite channels out there, besides Arch Warhammer series, and the others. Please do go give him a look if you like him, like it, subscribe to him, help him as much as you can. He really helped push me into this with his videos. They are just amazing. Another YouTuber I like to shout out for, because he has criminally low subs. It is really too bad for how great his content is. It's No Strings Productions. It's No Strings Productions. He's on YouTube. He has a bunch of content on Command & Conquer, some Minecraft content, but he has a couple of long-form documentary-style videos on Command & Conquer for the enthusiasts, and honestly, it's just brilliant. I cannot recommend his videos any higher, and I'm going to have a link for both of these YouTubers in my description for the video. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Check these guys out. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share it around, I guess. Advertise me! Okay. See you later. Bye. See you later.